Hello. So I'd like to talk a little bit about this book here called Pieces by Thayer, and the essay I want to talk about is called Explanation as Motive. And the question is, why do people do what they do? Most of the people, most of the time, do what they do for what reason? What is the motive? Is it really that we do what we do because there's something inside us, our genes, or some aspect about our personality, or something deep down within us, maybe our feelings? Could we do what we do because of the larger environment, or the social world somehow calls forth certain reactions? Or could it be that we do what we do because of communication, and in particular because of the explanation? That's what I want to argue to you today, that the explanation serves as the main motive for why people do what they do. Yes, if you want to understand why you do what you do and why other people do what they do, and I mean in general, I'm not talking about the exception, I'm talking about the everyday mundane case of why you're doing what you're doing. If you try to understand that, what you'll find is that there are three basic motives having to do with explanation. First is that you'll do what is done, you will have what is had, you will say what is said. The motive is in the explanation, even if it's self-explanatory. Yes, right? This is why most people prefer the warm smell of the herd, right? There's an old saying that says if you march to the beat of a different drummer and no one else hears the music, you'll look like a damn fool. But if you march to the same beat as everyone else and you are a damn fool, no one else will ever tell. It's that latter aspect which is the main motive for why people do what they do. They do what they do because it's self-explanatory. All you have to do is look out into your world, look around a little bit, and then do what other people are doing, and rest assured, no one will ask you to explain yourself. Here I am right now, I'm standing up and I'm wearing a shirt. No one asks me to do that. Why? Because I'm doing what's self-explanatory. Now, there's a second motive. The second motive is, if you're going to do something that you know is a break from what is self-explanatory, if somehow you're going to deviate from the self-explanatory norm, you're now going to have to explain yourself. You're going to have to come up with some reason, right? If I were suddenly wearing, I don't know, a clown outfit, I would have to somehow be able to address that. I would say, oh yes, well, I practice as a clown, or I'm going to a clown gig. I don't just go up and show up and teach in a clown outfit. Some people would say, why are you doing that? Right? The third order of explanation is when you can't explain something, and because you can't explain something, now you just won't do that thing. That's the closest you can do to grab hold of your behavior, is to say no excuses, to say under no conditions would this activity be explainable. Now, look at those three different classes of explanation, and then notice how those play out in everyday life. You will see those in all kinds of everyday life, whether it's at work, at school, it's in your relationships, it's even how you relate to yourself. Watch people in school. I see students do this all the time. One will say to another, hey, should we skip class? And then the other will say, I don't know. What will we say? And then they'll work on it. If they can come up with a good explanation, one that they think I will buy, they will have a motive for skipping class. The same with postponing an assignment. If they say, oh geez, I got to come up with some excuse for why I'm not done. It's so different if I say there are no excuses, I will not accept late papers. That somehow impacts some people. Watch relationships, right? If you take relationships, most relationships, almost all relationships, that's the first order of business. They'll get together and they will say, I don't know, are you seeing other people? I'm not seeing other people. Would I have to explain myself if I would be seen with other people? And they set up what's going to be explainable, what's not going to be explainable. Watch as people talk about fidelity in a relationship. When some person is saying to another person in the beginning of a relationship, well, I don't know, do you think people really can be true to one another? This person is setting up an explanation structure for the other person. That's what people do all day long. They set up the explanation structure, right? Part of what it means to be human is to have to find an explanation for what isn't self-explanatory. Why? Because we don't know what is the proper order of the day, and so what we do is we look around other people and we just do what they're doing. Look at the range of eating practices. Look at the range of the way people dress. I think when people travel, this becomes so apparent because you immediately start to recognize that the main motive for doing what you're doing, at least the bulk of what you're doing, is it's self-explanatory to those people around you. Right? Now, I said that this also applies to yourself. I think high performance people have become high performance people because they have learned how to say to themselves, no excuses. They have learned how to say to themselves, I don't buy that explanation. Yeah, sometimes if I have a lot of work to do, in the morning, I may wake up and say, oh, I so don't want to get up. I'm just so tired. And then another part of me pops up and says, well, I don't know that I buy that excuse. Is that an acceptable excuse for not getting up, being too tired? Maybe it is. Maybe I should go back to bed. But I think if I watch very closely and if I'm honest with myself, I start to realize that it's when I accept or don't accept my explanation that I end up doing whatever it is that I'm doing. I think you'd find that to be the case with almost all aspects of life. Turn on television shows, watch them for a little while, watch other people talk, watch other people give explanations. So oftentimes, the explanation actually precedes the act. If some person knows that they're going to do something that they shouldn't do, you watch them. They will try to come up with the explanation, right? It's a premeditated, the premeditatedness of acts is so apparent when we start to move toward explanation. Right? It's not just after the fact that we try to scramble to come up with an explanation for why we did what we've already done. It's that once we come up with an explanation, we now have a motive for doing what we perhaps know that we shouldn't do. Okay, thanks.